All right. Hello and welcome to Critical Conversations. I'm your host, Karissa Dean, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes of this conversation today. When I sat down, I knew I needed to record a podcast, and I wasn't 100% sure what it was that I wanted to chit chat with y'all about today. But as I started my day, met with a client, it became so clear. So I'm excited to dive in with you guys. Today we're going to talk, at first when I was taking a shower this morning, I was like, I want to talk to the entrepreneurs. I want to talk to them about hiring and firing because this year has been the most interesting, I should say, with contractors and employees. And I've had like two gnarly situations where I've had to fire people and it fucking sucks. So that was my initial thought. But then I met with this client not too long ago, and I really think what it is that is going to be most beneficial is actually having a conversation about how these hard moments, like having to fire or let go of an employee or a relationship, it's really about permission to change. And so I really think that the conversation, while it's going to start off with this story around, being an entrepreneur and having to let go of employees, it's really about permission to change at any given moment and choosing the harder thing, which isn't fucking fun. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to ask really briefly, you guys. I absolutely am working so hard to push this podcast. I really love this platform. I really like showing up here. I literally signed on a new client who was like, I've been listening to your podcast and I finally said yes. And another client who was like, I've been listening to your podcast and I decided to book your retreat. So when you guys share this, it really does support people. And that's the whole goal. It's not necessarily for me to get business, but I want people to feel better. And so it obviously does something because y'all are listening. And it's just amazing. So what I'm asking for right now is for you to subscribe, and to follow on whatever platform you're choosing to listen. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking just a brief second right now to give it that subscribe, and follow. All right. So critical conversations, we're always talking about, the nitty gritty, what people don't want to say. And you're welcome. I'm willing to say it. But, this morning I was like, okay, I got to record a podcast. What do I want to talk about? And I was like, I have this situation. So in the beginning of the year, I had hired a contractor and, it was like the perfect storm of fuck, this was the wrong choice. And I kept trying to motivate this person. I kept trying to, ask questions and really get curious about well, why are you doing it that way? Well, okay, tell me more about your process. Really trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that it's natural for employers to get frustrated with their employees. It's natural for us to get frustrated with our kids. When you're doing life, you are working with other people. And so I was really trying to not focus on the pieces that were frustrating, and really focus on, well, what's the reason behind the thing, right? And so I really pushed myself, stay curious, stay open, ask more questions, be less abrasive, because I think it's really easy for me to be like, well, that's dumb. Because that's your easy default, right? Is well, that's what? So that was, early in this year. And it was really challenging for me because when I am working with somebody or I bring them into my world, I've hired them to do something, I have a really hard time advocating for myself. And I think that a lot of people are going to resonate with this. I struggle because I think to myself, well, they're doing their best. Like, I'm always giving the benefit of the doubt. Well, I think that they're doing their best. I think that maybe they're having a hard time in life, or gosh, something must be going on in their world. And so I'm always like making excuses for their behavior, and to my own detriment, right? So this contractor, like, literally we were bleeding out trying to support this person who, in the end, we ended up having to rip it all out, redo it all. And it was like, what the fuck, Karissa? And it's a hard lesson, because I think what it taught me in that moment, that particular situation, was you can't always just look to the bright side of certain people, because the truth is, if they're not willing to look at their dark side, you shining light to what's not going well won't make a difference. And at what point do you protect your peace or your pocketbook or your sanity, like whatever it is that you need to protect? So that was situation number one. And listen, I've hired and fired truck drivers, but it's been a long time. Most of the people that I'm working with now, they're independent contractors, and it's like I hire them for a very specific thing. And if they work out, great, I'll rehire them. If they don't, I just move on. So it's been, I've like, there's a layer of separation there. But, when you're hiring somebody and they're like an employee, they're on your payroll, I think that there's a really important nurturing process. But the process is more important for you to understand where your boundaries are. Like, what are you willing to navigate? What are you willing to deal with? And I know that there's this like, percentage that is strung out there all over, where it's saying, 80% or 70% done is better than you doing it everything 100%, right? So they're saying, like, if you're going to do the task and you're going to do it 100% right, somebody else doing 70 to 80% is best. They're like, that's what you should expect. And I do agree with that. And I think it's really important to understand what is that 20 to 30% that you're willing to let go of. Like, what is that boundary? And I think that that's where, for me, I have to sit down and get really clear about, like, okay, I'm going to hire this person to do this thing. What are the things I'm willing to be okay with? And I've had this experience too. I've got contractors cleaning properties. They never fucking do it the way that I want. Like, it's never 100% the way that I want it. And it's like, what 20 to 30% am I willing to let go? Right. And so I think where, as entrepreneurs, we can go sideways when we're hiring contractors or employees is, what are our expectations? Like, what are the hard no's, right? So like, if you're hiring a bookkeeper, that motherfucker better be accurate with the numbers, right? That would be a hard boundary. Maybe we're letting go of the timeline. Maybe we're letting go of, she likes to work in Google Docs versus, Word or whatever, right? So like, maybe we're letting go. Maybe she really likes to go off of paper instead of, 2 screens. So I think that it's like, what are you willing to let go of and let people find their own creative process? And where are you willing to say, actually, this isn't going to work for me? And I think that that's the piece that I've really honed in on this last year. And, I'm going through a process right now, and I've known that I've needed to let this person go for a while, like probably for 6 months. But I've been holding on because I'm like, okay, I need the help, right? But it's like blatantly clear, like within the last week, they're not even giving me the 20% that I need. So it's like, now I'm just bleeding out. And why am I bleeding out? Well, I really love this person, and I really like feel for their situation and their story, and I want to help them. I want to teach them, but it's like getting to the point where, like, I don't have, like, it's not my responsibility as an entrepreneur who's hiring you as a contractor. It's not my responsibility to help you do your job, right? Like, I'm not going to do it for you. And I can't sit there and handhold you through every step of the way. Otherwise I'd do it myself, right? And so it's like, there is a nurturing period, but then there's also this like period where it's like, it's not worth it because it's not getting done. Right. And so yesterday showed up, it wasn't even fucking done. And I was just like, this, like, and Nigel's like, well, this person hasn't been doing it for a while, Karissa. Like, he's like, are you really that surprised? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm disappointed because I really cared about this person. I really wanted to see them thrive. I really wanted to teach them how to run a business. And, like that's what they came to me for. They were like, I want to work with you. And I'm like, okay, here's how you can work with me. Because they wanted to grow and be an entrepreneur, but like you have to be motivated. And I think that's the piece too, where it's like you can't make someone motivated. And Nigel and I talk about this all the time with his employees because he always sees this big dream for them. And I'm like, but that's your dream for them. Like you have to get curious about what their dream is for themselves. Like you can't want it more than they want it. And so you have to stop and you have to have your boundaries, right? So that's number one. Like you have to have your boundaries. What are the things that are a non-negotiable for me? And, like the non-negotiable for me has been, like touch and go for like a solid 6 months. And so the non-negotiable is that, okay, now it didn't get done. And there's a timeline, and the timeline's important because there are other people in this project and it matters. And so I think you, number one, have to know what the boundary is. What is the 20 to 30% that you're willing to let go of? Okay. And the second thing is you have to know your person. Some people are just not going to do it. They're not motivated. We talk about this all the time with Nigel. And even with, like our house cleaner and the handymans I have helping me with the different properties, it's like, what motivates them? So one of my favorite things to do is to go out to lunch with them or take them out to the, my handyman loves to go to the bar. So let's go to the bar. Let's go to the dive bar. I'm going to buy you a beer. And it's like, I want to get to know them. So I get to know them. I ask questions, like, tell me about your wife, tell me about your kids, what brought you here? Like, what's your favorite project to work on? When you're going, like you're fixing X, Y, and Z, like, what do you like about that? What do you not like about that? What's the dirtiest thing you've ever had to, like, just conversation, right? I'm just getting to know them. I'm building a relationship with them because my motivation is I want them to do this thing for me. But some people are not motivated by the price. So I know that for one of my handymans, he's always going to undercharge me. I'm always going to overpay him. And what does he thrive off of? He thrives off my communication, me checking in with him. How's your wife? How's your dog? How's the kiddo? What's going on in your world? Like he thrives off of that. And he shows up for me for that. My other cleaner, that girl loves flowers. Send her flowers. She will do anything. She just loves little gifts. And so it's almost as if like through these interactions, these engagements with them, I'm getting to know what drives them. And so for a couple of these two particular situations in this last year that I'm talking about, I didn't take the time necessarily to get to know them because I thought it was a shorter contract and it wouldn't matter, but it matters. I never figured out what drove them. I didn't figure out their love language, right? So it's like one cleaner, I know her love language is the gifts. The other, my handyman, he loves the words of affirmation. And so it's like, you have to get to know your people's love language. And I think that this is where it can broaden, the conversation can broaden to all types of relationships, not just employee, employer, or independent contractor, but like, do you know what motivates the people around you? Like for me, my love language is quality time. So the people who take time to check in on me, to show up for me, to make plans with me, like, I'll give you the shirt off my back. You can have my fucking car. Like that, like if you are making time for me, that is all I need, right? And Nigel and I argue all the time because that's like the number one thing that he has the least of, right? And so, but it's understanding that in which you can cultivate and get what you need out of the relationship, because at the end of the day, we all need something. We all want something, but it's about understanding the motive behind it, right? So if I'm doing something for someone, my motive is time. I want to spend time with you. I want to get to know you. I want to have an experience with you. I think that's why I'm constantly going and doing, and, you know, or I'm going to this lake, I'm going to this lake, I'm hanging out with this friend. I'm always doing something because that is my love language. That is what is my driver, right? I'm working because I want to do things because my love language is this quality of time, you know, whereas like Nigel's is physical touch, which, you know, it's always so funny to me, like how opposites attract themselves, because I'm not a super touchy feely person. And he like is always trying to touch me in my sleep, and I'm always like elbowing him. It's a constant joke in our house. But anyways, we're working on it, right? But, you know, to go back to these two people who I'm having to let go, you know, I haven't even let this person go yet because I'm trying to see if there's a path where I can find the motivation. But I also know, how much is that worth? Like, how much more energy do I need to put into this? How much more emphasis do I need to give to this situation where I'm not getting anything in return? Like, this is honestly just like, at this point, it's a fucking pain in my ass because I'm paying you, you're not doing anything, and I'm going to do it anyways. So what's the point? So I think that when you are an employer or an entrepreneur, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing something. There's an exchange somewhere, right? You're buying product and reselling it. You're taking courses. Somebody's helping you along the way. Like I don't know an entrepreneur who isn't building their business off of relationships. And so my question to you is, how are you building your relationships? How are you finding the thing that motivates your people? What is it? Do you know their love language? You know, when you're looking at, everyone's going to make all this money. Well, some people aren't motivated by money. Some people are perfect. Like my one handyman, he literally undercharges me and I overpay him. And like, it's just like what we do. And he's like, it's not about the money. I'm glad to help. You know, I love driving by the house and knowing that like I painted that and I repaired that. And like, that's fun for me because I'm giving back to my community. Like money is not a motivator for him. So what's the motivator? And if you don't take time to understand that, I think that that's where the quarrels of life and business, that's where it happens. You know, it's understanding the driver of people, and the driver of people is whatever their love language is. So do you know what drives your people? And this goes into, you can take this into everything. Like, are you married? Do you have a partner? Are you dating? Do you know their love language? There's 5 of them. I mean, it's been a long time since I've studied this, so, you cannot quote me on this, but just like type it into Google. There's a quiz you can take, and it will tell you what the love languages are. And I'm going to tell you right now, the best thing I ever did was take that test with Nigel so that I knew, he's pissed at me because I'm not holding his hand. Like, and I don't want to hold his hand. But like, that's how he knows I love him. That's his driver for loving me and wanting to show up for me. And so you got to do it. Right? If that's the partner you chose, you got to meet them where they're at, right? The other one is acts of service. He loves acts of service. Okay, well, if I'm, reflecting on the last 6 months, how have I been showing up? Have I been showing up, right? So I think that we ignore this relationship piece, but this relationship piece is the key to experiencing more of what we want. And how do we face that? Well, we face that because we understand what we need, and we understand that there's always an exchange. And I think for me, I'm getting ready. I'm going to, be having a conversation with this person, and I'm going to be letting them go. And it's going to break my heart because I really want them to thrive. But it's not on me. It's on you. You have to figure out what motivates you and what drives you. And it's clearly not the money. Maybe you don't want to be doing this. I think that there's conversations as entrepreneurs or, as humans that we get to have with the people we're hiring and working with, where it's like, do you want to do this? I'm constantly after, the people I hire. So my little sister, Abby, she supports me in making these podcasts happen, in making my social media happen. And I'm always checking in with her. Like, how do you feel about this? Like, you're a contractor. You don't have to do this. Do you want to? Do you like it? Is it fun for you? How can I make it better for you? Like, I'm constantly checking in with her, and have there been issues and things that have gone wrong? Yeah, of course. But it's like, I don't need to make it a big thing because I know that it's never going to be 100%. There's learning curves to all of it. Like, fuck, I honestly, you guys wouldn't know how to upload a podcast at this point because we learned together. And then I was like, okay, do it. I never want to do this. Right. And so I do need her, but I also need her to love her job and be happy about doing it. And I don't know if money is the only driver for her. I think that our relationship is a driver for her. I think she's curious about this part of the world and has interest. So like, her motivator is multifaceted. And I know that, and I understand that. But I think that, in this other person, I think he just needs the money, but like, you have to care about your craft. You have to care about what you're doing. And if you don't care about it, then it doesn't matter how much I pay you. You're still going to like haphazardly do it. You have to care about the end result. And I think that's where it gets sticky for certain people, is we don't know what drives us. And I'm saying this because when I first started in the coaching world, it kind of like haphazardly happened, right? Like, I hired my coach, I was working with my coach, and then she was like, you should be a coach. And then it was like, okay. And then it was like, okay, do this training. And I was like, okay. And then it was like, wow, you can make all this money. And so I think at first it was like, wow, I can make all this money. And so like, this driver was like money. And that was my ego. That was my 3D world kicking my ass, being like, more money, more money. That's what'll make you happy. And I think for the longest time, I chased like this desire of quote unquote freedom that comes with making a shit ton of money. But like, it was never sustainable. It never felt great. And it's because that's not what actually motivates me. It's not. Because I made a ton of money last week, but I didn't do any coaching. And I was super unmotivated about it. And then this week, I got all my coaching clients stacked up because I was doing this other project. So I moved everyone off of last week. Everybody's on this week. And I'm motivated. I'm like, ooh, I want to work now. Like, I'm excited to work. My motivator is the relationships that I'm creating, the change, the impact I'm having, and the time. I'm getting to spend the time doing the things that I love. That's motivating for me. That's my driver. And I think that you have to understand what your driver is as an entrepreneur. Why are you doing the thing that you're doing? Is it just for the paycheck? That's good and great. I get it. We live in this 3D world. Money needs to happen. That's why I fucking was in a dump truck last week. Like, money needs to come. Okay, great. But like, if we don't have motivation in other areas of our life, I think that that's where it bleeds into our work, and we are not caring about our craft. And so you have to stay in tune with your craft. You have to stay in tune with why you're doing what you're doing. And so I think for this person, they want the money, but they don't really care about they just want the money. And that's a fight or flight response, right? They're in this fight or flight response, but it's not my responsibility as an entrepreneur or as somebody who's hiring them. I can't fix that. That's none of my business. They have to recognize that they're on this hamster wheel and that they're losing jobs and they don't know why they're losing jobs. Well, it's because you don't care about your craft. And the people who are paying you want you to care about what they're paying for. Right? And so what are you up to? Like this is kind of a little bit of a confusing conversation. But I hope that you're picking up pieces of it, because ultimately what we're talking about here is like, do you know what motivates you? And if you don't, you have to be willing to change it. You have to be willing to take responsibility for like, wow, I'm really not caring about my craft, or I'm really not paying attention to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I should get curious about that. What motivates me? What drives me? What is my why? And I think the more that you stay connected to that, the easier it is when you're having life happen to you, because things are going to happen to you. So if I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, okay, like I knew why I had to get in a dump truck last week, because the money has to come from somewhere. And right now that's where the majority of it's going to come from. That's not how I want to spend my days, but fuck, if it gets me closer to how I want to spend my days, I'm in. And I'm going to care about my craft because I care about where I'm going. So this is where we lose our vision. We got to care about where we're going. And this is where you get to be a conscious liver, not a liver like an organ, but a being. You get to be a conscious being and you get to make decisions that feel good because you're motivated by the right things. You understand what motivates you. And when you understand what motivates you, you can motivate your people by being this example. But you can't want it more than they want it. And so you also have to be willing to release those people and situations. This is where you look at the relationship where there's one partner who's all in 100%, giving, and the other partner is kind of just like, yeah. And this is where you see like those gnarly breakups and things, because it goes both ways. So like, I want this person to be part of what I'm creating, but like, they don't want it. I can't want it more than them. And so I got to just be like, hey, it's okay. I hope you figure it out. Like, it was fun. Sorry it didn't work out. But like, if you don't care about where we are going in this business or in this partnership or in, whatever it is, if you're not in it with me and you don't see where we're going, then it doesn't make sense. Like Abby, it's like, I'm constantly being like, okay, we got to sit back down and we got to look at where we're going. Like, what are our goals? What are we trying to do? Okay, here's where you fit into that. Are you good with that? Like, do you believe in this? I need you to believe in this. And there's even been times where she believed in it more than I did, where I'm like, I give up. I don't want to do it anymore. It's too much work. And she's like, but you're really good at it. So like you need people who believe in where you're going. And sometimes they need to believe in it more than you. Because I think as an entrepreneur, it's easy to get lost and it feels hard and it feels heavy. And you can get out of alignment because you do pay all the bills for the business. And it can feel like it's just this money game. But that's why if you care about your craft, if you know what motivates you, if you know why you're doing what you're doing, these situations are going to be easier to navigate, because it's like, hey, we're just not aligned. This is just not the right fit. We're not aligned. We're not going in the same direction. And that's okay. I really hope that you figure out what it is, how you would like to be spending your time. But it's not here with me anymore. And I think those are some of the most freeing conversations to have. But you have to be at peace with, we're not going in the same direction. And that is okay. No blame, no shame, no guilt. It's just not the right fit. So the more that we give ourselves that permission, right? It's like, oh, I feel like I just talked myself through it. Like, oh, when I think about it in that regard, it's simple. It feels really clean. It's like, you don't want to be doing this, and that's okay. So go figure out what you want to do. But it's hard because we care about people and we are humans and we want to feel the humanness with them and we want to connect, and it can be heartbreaking. But I want to give you permission to take that deep breath, to check in with yourself, figure out your love language, figure out the love language of those around you, understand the motivator, understand the driver, and then bring the people on that are like willing to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Because you're going to need it, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You know, in my marriage, I struggled, but I always had someone who believed in me. And that is why he's my perfect person. Doesn't need to make sense to anyone else, but he's always believed in me. And because of his belief in me, I'm still here trying to do what I want to do, what motivates me, what drives me, what gives me my purpose. You have to find people who believe in you, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to know what it is that you're trying to create. Where are you going? What is the end product? You have to care about the end product, you know, and this is why I think everything is a relationship. I did a podcast about this a while ago. Go back and listen to it. Everything is a relationship. Your money, everything's a relationship. And so if you know what you need from those relationships, you can find the people who are willing to meet you and care about the end product together, right? This is why I love family meetings. Hey guys, let's come to the table. Where are we going? Like, we're all like doing our things. We're busy. We're over here. We're over there. We're practice. We're at school. We're at work. We're at, you know, our volunteer thing. Like, we're going to this thing, we're going to that thing, so-and-so's house, but it's like, why? Like, let's come back to the table. What is our goal? How do we want our life to be? And how do we fill in the gaps so that we're all on the same page? We're doing it together. We believe in it together. Be open to it. Be open to it. Be open to the conversation. Be open to the change, and understand that like it's okay if that it's time to part ways. Because if you're not going in the same direction, it will not matter what work you do. If you have two completely end destinations, right? Like, so these two employees, right? It's like they're going somewhere else. Well, that's not where we're going. Either you can get on with me and we're going to go here and I'm going to pay you, or you can get off and go figure out where it is that you can align. So that alignment of where we're going is so important, and we don't give ourselves permission enough to sit down, to take the time to identify that, to be clear on it. And that's why entrepreneurship and coaching entrepreneurs is my favorite, because that's what I help them do. What are you doing? Let's sit down and get really clear, because when you're clear, then you can lead your people, and then your people are clear, and then everybody's caring about that end result together. And they're filling in those gaps, and everyone has this goal that they're working towards. But you have to be clear, and you have to identify what's the boundary, what's the 20 to 30% that I'm willing to like be okay with not happening, and what is like the non-negotiable. Clarity is key. Clarity is key. All right. Well, now I'm clear about what I have to go do. Hopefully you are clear about what you have to go do. We are at that 35-minute mark here in just a few seconds. I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I do talk about relationships in a previous podcast. It should say something about relationships are everything. Go listen to that podcast. It was a really good one. Actually, I think it's one of the ones that has the most listens to. There's a lot of really fun interviews and people coming up on critical conversations. We're getting close to our 1-year celebration mark. So the more that you guys tune in and tell me what you want to hear, the easier my job is. So what is it you want to hear on critical conversations next? Make sure to send me that note. I'll look forward to seeing you at the next conversation. Have the most beautiful, blessed day. You're amazing. You're worthy. Go discover your 5 love language for you and those around you. And yeah, let's make this world a better place.